I have written a tribute to him. I've called it Namesake. I carry your name, but I knew you not. Yet memory lives on. We claim the same line, that Archibald Barclay of 1782, and you, Archie, born 1895, but snatched so rudely in France, short of your 23 years. My father told me of your boyhood pranks, how you took your thrashing, then rolled under the table to laugh at him getting his. The pushbike tricks you taught yourselves, tricks Bruce kept alive long years later in Napier's post-quake carnivals. I treasure your framed medals, sad reminder of premature death. DCM, distinguished conduct in the field. Military medal, bravery in the field, neither given lightly. 1914-15 star and service medals, all surrounding that brass plaque that bears your name and the dubious epitaph, he died for freedom and honor. I found your name in the records of Queen Margaret Chapel, Edinburgh Castle, a grim register of the futility of war, remembered only young Scots lads, remembered only in endless death lists and in the memories of grieving kin. What fools we are, led by the nose, politicians wielding power, oblivious to rights of men, cannon fodder for inflated egos. May I carry your name with pride, holding dear to my Kiwi Scottish heritage. May I contribute to that better world you fought and died for. That's Archie there. In 1909, when Bruce was 12, he joined the Scouts, just a year after Baden-Powell had founded the movement. And he became the bugler for the Roslin troop, and a good bugler too. Years later in Napier, he was the man who sounded the reveille and the last post at Anzac Day services and at RSA funerals for many, many years. In the war, or when the war broke out in 1914, Bruce was 2 years into a cadetship as a telegraphist with Midland and Scottish Railways. Morse key man, and good too. He developed to 40 words a minute. Now that's 45 letter words a minute. That's over 3 letters a second, which he could print in very legible capital letters as if he was receiving Morse code. He was snapped up by Marconi, and Marconi had a place in London and training school, and Bruce did his training there at Marconi School and then was hired out to one of the shipping companies. Marconi was quite shrewd though. He kept a tab on his young telegraphists and hired them to the companies and insisted on them having a junior officer status. So Bruce started off quite well in 1914-15. One of his first trips was to take mules and horses from Argentine to the Dardanelles for the Gallipoli campaign. Then they loaded supplies at Alexandria, sailed down through the Suez and the Red Sea, up the Persian Gulf to Basra to supply British troops who were fighting the Turks in what was then Mesopotamia, now Iraq. Nothing much has changed, has it? He sailed the world in those years, South America, South Africa, the United States, Australia. One of their trips was through the freezing Barents Sea up to Archangel to deliver goods to the Russians. This would be before the 1917 revolution. By January 1918, he was back in Basra again in the steaming heat for his 21st birthday. But in between times, he was twice on ships torpedoed in the North Atlantic and twice spent 4 very uncertain and very cold days in open lifeboats, landing the first time on the Irish coast and just 3 weeks later, the second time, on the coast of the Hebrides. Mum said when he landed the second time, his hair had turned white. Not surprising. Now these are the rollicks from one of those lifeboats. I don't know how he managed to keep them, but he did. And those were the drinking cans. That was a day's water supply for each member of in the boat, dipped out of the barrel of water that would be there for them. But that was a day's supply. Not very much. Scots, I suppose, have been fighting for somebody's survival or their own since the year dot. The Romans gave them away as bad news and untamable and built Hadrian's Wall to keep them out of England. They then fought with the English in the Crusades, and then they turned round and fought against the English to keep them out of Scotland. William Wallace and Robert the Bruce were two of the champions who marshalled the Scots against Edward I and later Edward III, and gained some semblance of freedom and liberation in 1328. But 500 years later, they still hadn't forgotten, especially after the Jacobite risings in the early part of the 18th century. And Robert Burns put the national feeling into words when he wrote this classic war cry, Scots wha hae, Scots who have with Wallace bled, Scots whom Bruce has often led, welcome to your gory bed or to victory. Scots wha hae wi' Wallace bled, Scots wham Bruce has often led, welcome to your gory bed or to victory. Now's the day and now's the hour, see the front o' battle lour, see approach proud Edward's power, chains and slavery. Wha would be a traitor knave? Wha would fill a coward's grave? Wha sae base as be a slave? Let him turn and flee. Wha for Scotland's king and law freedom's sword will strongly draw? Freeman stand or freeman fall, let him follow me.